Finally, the Fantasy Joker has come back to Monday nights. See, we got another week of fantasy football down in the books. Welcome to the first ever Monday Mayhem live stream. Honestly, this is just breaking the fourth wall. It was better for my schedule as a dad, it turns out. I had a random meeting at school that I didn't even know about at 6:30. I just got back from that at 7:30, cracked right in. Let's get right into it. What did I get wrong this week?
I'm stupid. You're smart. I was wrong. You were right. You're the best. I'm the worst. You're very good looking. I'm not attractive.
All right. As long as you're willing to admit that.
So I started off with Zach Moss right off the bat. I was kind of fading just Indianapolis Colts running backs, but I forgot how bad the Houston Texans run defense was. And they sure reminded me. And it wasn't just Zach Moss. Anthony Richardson was on his way to a massive fantasy day. Unfortunately, on his second touchdown, actually, it seems like his head snapped back, hit the turf, and he had to pull himself from the game and be self-evaluated for a concussion protocol. And so basically he ended up missing the rest of the game. Gardner Minshew came in, took care of business. Houston Texans, week 2, probably not trying to push. It's not the playoffs or anything. But at the same time, I've just been very concerned with Anthony Richardson's play style. We've seen in the past, like with Cam Newton, yes, it's all great when you're truck sticking guys because you're so much bigger than everybody. But frankly, these NFL linebackers are just as big and just as fast and are looking to hit you. And it's been a couple of weeks in a row now that Richardson's been dinged up and struggled with injuries. And if it keeps going that way, I don't think he's going to be able to hold up for the entire season. The other thing I really got to eat crow on is the Bears offense just looks horrible. And it is Justin Fields, but it's also the play calling. Like, there was a play I remember specifically where the two wide receivers are basically standing next to each other. Like, if they both put their arms out, they could hold hands. That's how close they were. And it just doesn't make sense. When you talk about spacing in the NFL and spacing out NFL defenders who are like super fast, putting two guys next to each other is the complete opposite of what you want to do, because now you're just bunching your offense together. You're actually making it easier for defenders to make a play on the ball, even because, with two guys that close together, you put one guy in between them, and NFL defenders are pretty smart. They can read the quarterback's eyes. They can read the coverage. They can guess which way the ball is going and more often than not be right. And when you have another guy coming in from another angle that's supposed to be covering one of those two players, that's how these interceptions happen, especially if one of them gets a hand in there, ball pops up. Next thing you know, it's going the other way. So a little bit concerned, a lot of bit concerned about the Bears offense right now. You would think that, and I think we saw this in the past where, and it's been lamented, the lack of designed runs for Justin Fields, who's one of the best running backs. He is one of the best running backs, but he's one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL. I think it's reactionary to just for people to be like, he's not a franchise quarterback now and he's a bust because it's been, 2 bad games. Ultimately, I think they can correct things, but it's going to have to come from a place of stepping back and going back in half of last year. The other thing is on the other side of the ball, the Buccaneers are just like way better than I thought they were going to be. So that was something that kind of really surprised me. And, yes, like I wasn't poo pooing Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I understand those are excellent wide receivers, but we all saw through training camp and preseason, like Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. So it wasn't uncalled for, but obviously Baker Mayfield has exceeded expectations. I think one of the sneaky surprise stories of the early season is the Baker Mayfield redemption story. Buccaneers are now, I think they're 2-0, pretty sure, which is crazy. But yeah, like that whole division is like surprising in terms of how well they're playing now. I took a look at the score before this, and the Saints Panthers game live check-in is 3-3 and is looking pretty ugly. And another thing I can just admit I was wrong about, low-key hate myself for playing Jamal Williams, who has the entire backfield to himself, over James Conner, who obviously showed out against the Giants, which we'll get into very soon, actually twice. But yeah, just that was a bad decision. We all have those bad decisions, unfortunately, in fantasy where it's like the matchups there. And, before, I don't think there was anyone before the game that thought the Arizona Cardinals, who look like they're in full tank mode, were going to come in and kick the shit out of the New York Giants, coming off an utter ass whooping at the hands of the Dallas Cowboys. But frankly, that's what happened. Now, the Giants really dug their way out of it and saved themselves a lot of embarrassment. And frankly, I think the Cardinals also breathed a sigh of relief that the Giants were able to make a huge comeback there, because the Cardinals doesn't feel to me like they're actually trying to win games this year. The other thing that I'm really struggling with, and that I feel like I was definitely wrong about, is Chargers. The goddamn Chargers. Why are the Chargers so bad? And I definitely thought, like, I was a believer in Kellen Moore, and I definitely was of the opinion that Kellen Moore was going to help this offense. But frankly, it just almost seems to be having like the opposite effect. And you at least hoped, like, based off of last week, that maybe because of the run game, like, that was going to be better. But even that completely tanked this weekend. Granted, maybe the Tennessee Titans are just a much better defense than I've been giving them credit for. If I figured like the defense could like only hold up so much in the face of, the offense just being terrible, kind of. And, as much as I love Derrick Henry, even in yesterday's game, and get into that later, but like Derrick Henry had like 28 carries, and I don't think he cracked 100 yards. He had that touchdown, thank God. So it looked better than it was for fantasy, but and I will say also that like Bosa was back for that game, and that definitely made a huge difference in terms of the Chargers defense. So I feel like the Chargers defense is very much like monitor Bosa and his availability, because you can stream against them when he's out, but they may play. I mean, obviously, usually when you have a Bosa in your lineup on defense, you play better, but no, it feels like they are not necessarily like the team you want to target in those particular situations. But the offense is just, I thought Quentin Johnston would be more of a thing, and he's been an absolute ghost. So I'm struggling with the offense. Now, Justin Herbert, luckily, has still been basically greater than the sum of his parts. But it really hasn't been the best. I'm just going to pop into the game here. Now, I'm not going to stream the game because I'm pretty sure, like, I can't. But I do have it. Make sure I just cut there, though, when it comes on. yeah, progressive Monday night kickoff. Get that little sneaky dink in. All right. Pull up my show doc here. That is basically like a bunch of bullet points because I don't script anything. Yeah, the Giants. I talked about the Giants. Oh my God. How could you come out and get your ass kicked by the freaking Cardinals?
Shots, explosives.
Just a disgraceful performance. They're so lucky that they pulled out the win. The other thing that I have to eat crow on is Cowboys offense, kind of. Like, I expected Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer's offense to be kind of terrible, if I'm being perfectly honest, and I expected them to really struggle with NFL defenses. I just never really expected, as good as the Dallas Cowboys defense is, that they were going to struggle with their own defense. Because if this trend honestly continues the rest of the season, like, you're basically only going to want to play Dak, especially, I feel like, in competitive games. Because even in this game, which was technically like another really good game in real life, he went 255 for 2. That's fine. It didn't tank your lineup. But when we go into the hearts and farts, which is, my version of studs and duds, you'll see that there were a crazy amount of quarterbacks this week that had 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns. And Dak didn't crack 300. He was I think 20th for fantasy or something. Anyways, we'll get into the hearts and farts. Now, this is where I get to pat myself on the back a little bit. What was I right about?
First, to say I told her so, but you know what? I told her so. I told her so.
Kyle Pitts, and it's funny because I mentioned that Drake London would probably have a bounce back game just so that Arthur Smith could technically spite us for fantasy. So if you left Drake London on the bench, I hope you had a really good option, because there were a couple leagues where I was, a Deontay Johnson owner, a Christian Watson owner, and I wasn't gonna put some jabroni in my lineup over Drake London, and that ended up working out for me. Now, I do find it concerning that his role, which is the X receiver in an Arthur Smith offense, which does have viability, unlike the tight end spot, and unlike all the other wide receivers, basically, the primary X receiver, similar to AJ Brown back in the early days with the Titans, has viability in that offense. Now, the problem is if it starts getting actually split between Drake London and Mac Hollins, that could be bad for business. So if you're able to move on from Drake London, now is certainly the time. And, Kyle Pitts is dead for fantasy. He is borderline droppable, but you're tanking your lineup if you keep putting him in your lineup. Honestly, the person that has Hunter Henry, I would literally offer them Kyle in redraft, not dynasty, obviously, but in redraft. Go offer the Hunter Henry owner just straight up Kyle Pitts for Hunter Henry. If it was me, I hate having Kyle Pitts on my fantasy teams. I've lamented Arthur Smith's use of Kyle Pitts all offseason, and I would still really struggle to decline that trade. And Hunter Henry right now is the tight end too, and is a much better asset to own in terms of a pure redraft. Who's going to actually score me more points? And I mean, I was going to save it for later, but I gotta go into the Kyle Pitts section in the farts. We're going all the way to 2/3 of the episode here. Well, I was saving this drop for later, but no, I'm pulling this out right now because it's so bad. Kyle Pitts had 2 for 15. That 2 catches for 15 yards. I'm gonna give you the list of names here that scored more fantasy points this week than Kyle Pitts. I hope you're ready for this, all right? Brace yourselves because it's ugly. Honestly, if you're standing, you should probably sit down. If you're driving, please pull over safely to the side of the road before you throw up all over yourself, because this list is disgusting. Jordan, Trey McBride, Durham Smythe, every single Seattle tight end, like Will Dissly, Noah Fant, and Cody Parkinson, Noah Gray, Luke Schoonmaker, Will Mallory, Jonnu Smith on his own freaking team, and Austin fucking Hooper. All of them outscored Kyle Pitts this week. Kyle Pitts is dead for fantasy until further. Look how it happens. Like, okay, great. You played him weeks of poo so that you could be right about 1 week. Congratulations. And then 2 more that I'm kind of like in between of like I was right and I was wrong because I have them on a lot of rosters, but I wasn't brave enough to play them in every format. There was some where I did, but I cost myself probably 1 matchup for sure. And then there's another one I'll likely survive. But I left Brian Robinson, unfortunately, on my bench in 2 leagues because I really hated the Denver matchup. Generally, their run defense is pretty stiff. And I was like worried about that. But Brian Robinson for the rest of the year is basically an RB2. And, you know, volume-wise has the potential to have RB1 weeks. Nico Collins, that was one that was actually like really cool. Oh, Steelers Highsmith with the pick 6. Oh yeah, baby. Live react to the Highsmith, and I have Highsmith in DFS. Sorry, excuse me. Pardon my French. God damn it. IDP. I have him in FF7s. I think it is. Or maybe it's another one, but I definitely have some IDP shares of Alex Highsmith. So shout out to him with the big pick 6 to start the game. Steelers starting off hot. And you know what? That's a good sign for Najee Harris. Hopefully they can get the lead and just lean on Najee in this game because I need that in a couple leagues. Hell yeah. Go Steelers. All right, back to I was right. Pat myself on the back. Nico Collins. I called that one on, it was a live stream with the fantasyfootballadvice.network. Go check that out. There's all kinds of great content creators over there, and I jumped on one of their live streams, which was hella hard because I was like really tired. And Sunglasses made their first ever appearance on that show. And honestly, like when I'm doing these nighttime streams, again, breaking fourth wall, I've got one of these like stupid ring lights now. And yeah, it is like kind of bright right in my face with all of the, you know, double computer screen and everything. So yeah, I've taken to wearing the Folkleys during these late night streams, and you know, gives me a little bit of that wrestling persona edge. Let me talk to you. Yeah. The Rams. I said all offseason the demise of the Rams was being greatly exaggerated. As long as Matt Stafford and Aaron Donald are healthy, like this team is decent for the most part because you have like really good leaders like that. Now, obviously, Cooper Kupp missing definitely had people worried, but man, Puka Nagota, man, most receptions in the first 2 games of his career. Is it Justin Jefferson? Is it Jamar Chase? No, it's Puka Nacua, the most fun name to say in fantasy football this year. Puka Nacua! God damn, that's just so much fun. I literally, just every time he has this reception, just stomp around your house. Puka Nacua! If, well, it was like those like opening haka dances that they do sometimes, or I'm probably butchering the shit out of whatever I just called it. So super apologies, because I know it's supposed to be like an emblematic and like ceremonial dance, but man, does it ever hype you the fuck up? Like it's like the like battle dance. I'm sure, like I said, there's way smarter people out there that know exactly what I mean. I appreciate the culture. I have no idea what the fuck it's called. Apologies. I'm a dumb, ignorant North American kid living in Quebec, Canada. Mota zita banakis. All right, and the other thing, Hunter Henry, that was by me. Shout out. When Travis Kelce was injured in week 1, I had Hunter Henry at the very tippy top of my list as like a quick waiver pickup. I did not expect him to be quite this effective, but even we saw he was actually like splitting a lot of snaps with Mike Gesicki, who was decently involved. But it doesn't matter. The Patriots have always traditionally been able to use 2 tight ends. I'm not worried about Hunter Henry's production whatsoever. The tight end position is once again abysmal this year. I even said, if you can trade Kyle Pitts in redraft for Hunter Henry, I don't hate it. Like, it sucks. It sucks so bad. And again, me as a person who picked up Hunter Henry and who does not like Kyle Pitts whatsoever for fantasy, it would be so hard for me on the other side of it to be like, oh yeah, just decline that. Like, you gotta believe if you drafted Kyle Pitts ultimately in that he will rebound somewhat and be more involved in the offense, but it's not going to happen. They're winning games. They're running the shit out of the ball. Even yesterday, Bijan looked amazing and honestly needs to be fed even more. But Tyler Algier still had 16 touches. They're just going to run the air out of this ball. They are throwing it back all the way to 1970, and Arthur Smith does not give a shit about your fantasy teams.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Ooh, do. All right. The Cardinals offense, I mean, to me, that's still a sell. Like, that was a crazy game against the Giants. They're in full tank mode. Like, James Conner is a hold because of just pure volume and the dearth of running back availability. But Hollywood Brown saw 10 targets and, scraped out a decent fantasy day with 6 for 54 and 1. If you can sell him for damn near anything, I would do it. Zach Ertz, hilariously had 6 for 56 on 8 targets. So not that you're like, you should be running out to like pick up Zach Ertz or like really like worried about that. But I would hold Trey McBride for the simple fact of like, if Zach Ertz goes down, then I could see McBride stepping into 5 to 6 of those targets on a consistent basis. So in deeper leagues, Trey McBride is still a hole for me because he's already involved on the field, like even with Ertz there. It's just obviously with them two splitting work. And, with Ertz actually like leading the way because of his previous relationship with Jonathan Gannon, like, McBride is just like a deep stash, but he is worth holding at least. And, Jordan Love, even though they lost, and, he made some errors, it's going to happen. He's a rookie. And, he's a rookie in the sense of like, this is his first actual year playing because obviously he redshirted behind Aaron Rodgers. But just the fact of, if it wasn't for that crazy 4th down try too by Arthur Smith, where they kind of flipped it out to Bijan and he got that first down, which was like ballsy as shit. Between that and then like a couple key mistakes, like they lost a really tough game to Falcons defense that I think is a little bit underrated, and it was a 1-point game. And he still had 3 touchdowns, and now that's 2 games in a row. He has 3 touchdowns without his primary wide receiver, Christian Watson. And Romeo Doubs didn't even have that good of a game. He was in the fart category this week. So perfect lead in. Let's just go right into the hearts and farts. And we'll start it off. We'll actually go positive and go into the hearts. Baby, fantasy football. So this week for the quarterback hearts, there was actually just a whole lot of them. Basically, like even the ones that like did bad actually didn't do that bad, to be honest. So like at the very top, Kirk and Jalen on Thursday, Kirk Cousins, Jalen Hurts both had good games, and then in a loss, throwing a bunch of deep passes, including a late Hail Mary, Russell Wilson. He was a top fantasy quarterback. Danny Dimes, same thing, looked horrible, but then because they had to come back against the Cardinals, ended up finishing as a top fantasy quarterback. And this was kind of like the argument I had made, was more that I thought between like just if he is able to kind of see a little bit of a passing boost in terms of the stats, especially with Darren Waller there, with Jalen Hyatt kicking in some deep shots, and then the combination of that and his rushing upside. But man, I'm at this point like it's going to be so inconsistent. I don't know how reliable it's going to be, but it could still be that in like the ugliest way he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback, because fantasy's a different beast than reality. Josh Allen, Jared Goff, and Geno Smith both in the same game. Ooh, yeah. Is that Nick Chubb? Please tell me that's Nick Chubb. Oh, yeah. Nick Chubb's getting it right now. Jared Goff, Geno Smith, Lamar Jackson, even Josh Dobbs had a good game. Jordan Love, Sam Howell, CJ Stroud. Even Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield had serviceable games. And Dak Prescott actually had like the same amount of fantasy points as like that category. So again, with Dak Prescott, this is not me shitting on Dak anymore, or even, shitting on the offense. I think the defense is legitimately so good now that you should be wary, or at least temper expectations of playing Dak Prescott specifically in matchups where they're going to be really ahead on the scoreboard. So, if you're looking at now, here's a perfect example. Next week, they're facing the Arizona Cardinals. And that's a situation where I think a lot of people might look at that matchup and say, hey, that's a great matchup for Dak. I actually don't think it's a great matchup for Dak, because in what world are the Arizona Cardinals going to press the Dallas? Like, now that would be a crazy game, as if somehow the Cardinals come out and slap the Dallas Cowboys in the mouth and go up 28-0, and now they have to play from behind and get a comeback victory. But I really don't see that happening for the Cardinals and for Dallas. I think Dallas defense is just going to come in and kick the shit. Unfortunately, out of Dobbs, and if Dobbs doesn't make it through the game, it's going to be Clayton Tune, and that's even worse. So I don't see any real feasibility for the Cardinals beyond just run the ball as much as possible with James Conner and get out of there as fast as possible. And I think Dallas is going to be very willing to do that. We just saw them give Tony Pollard, a surprising amount of carries. It was really gross and inefficient, and it was kind of basically what I was worried about from a buzz perspective for Tony Pollard. But he got there on sheer volume this week. So, I mean, that's a good segue right into the running backs. DeAndre Swift had the huge breakout game on Thursday. Colonel Mostert murdered the Patriots in the library with the candlestick. Brian Robinson had a huge game. Kyron Williams after the surprise inactive of Cam Akers, who is now once again on the trade block. Like, this guy's been on the trade block for 2 fucking years. They can't get rid of him. Just cut the man. Let him move on with his life. Like, Jesus Christ. Saquon Barkley, unfortunately, was injured, but he had a good game fantasy-wise. Bijan Robinson, this was always my concern. Now, he had a monster game for fantasy. It could have been even better. And the same thing like, Bijan is he is so clearly much better than Tyler Algier. And I love Tyler Algier. I think he's a quality running back in the NFL. He doesn't even scratch the surface of Bijan's talent. So obvious when they're on the field. Comparatively, like when you're watching them run, the only reason Tyler Algier should be in there, honestly, is just like if Bijan says, I'm tired, please give me a break. Rashad White, James Cook had a monster game kind of in between the tackles, but did not get into the end zone. That was Damian Harris and Latavius Murray doing it in gross fashion. Zach Moss. So the Zach Moss thing, I don't think that just means like Zach Moss is an RB2 rest of season. I think that's more indicative of whoever is playing Houston Texans run defense. You should be targeting the running back there. Tony Pollard, like I mentioned, got there through pure volume. Derrick Henry also got there through volume, but also had a touchdown. Ken Walker, a couple touchdowns. James Conner looked actually really good against the Giants and is a solid RB2 play. And man, was he like, as long as he just stays healthy, like he's going to be one of those incredible values, just like one of the wide receivers we'll talk about. And Ramondre Stevenson, who I am glad he had a decent game because I had recommended to someone that they start him because I actually thought it was going to come through receiving work, but he got it with a rushing touchdown. So that was good to see. Keenan Allen had a monster game. Mike Evans had a monster game. Puka Nacua! Most receptions, 25 for 266 in 2 games. For a 5th rounder that nobody really saw coming, that is pure insanity. Nico Collins, that was another one that, nice. I got 7 for 146 and 1. Devonta Smith and Justin Jefferson on Thursday. Tyler Lockett, perennially undervalued, just like James Conner. He's the James Conner of wide receivers right now. And all he did was go out, get 2 touchdowns, win the game for the Seahawks. So Tyler Lockett had a great game. CeeDee Lamb had a really good game. Marvin Mims had 2 monster receptions, including 1 for a touchdown. Josh Reynolds is going to be a popular waiver ad, especially if Amon-Ra is banged up. Christian Kirk. This one's interesting. Christian Kirk had a really bad game week 1, and then he had a good game week 2. And Doug Peterson actually like straight up said like, oh, well, Christian Kirk is significantly better against against man coverage than he is against zone coverage. And so when you're trying to parse out which Jaguars wide receiver you should be starting, and, Zay Jones unfortunately ended up on the fart list with Calvin Ridley, even though literally both of them had 3 separate touchdowns that were like just barely like, they didn't get both toes down. So I don't know what's going on with the game here. The Browns are all celebrating. I was distracted. Oh, no. Kenny Pickett did something bad again. Why are we throwing the ball with Kenny fucking Pickett? Why? God damn it. I just saw it. Interception. Why the fuck are we even doing this right now? Give Najee Harris the damn ball. Fuck's sakes. Oh, this is so frustrating. Fucking instant red zone for the Browns. Man, our defense, though. We get a sack right back. We're up end of the red zone, like on our side of the field. Feed Najee the damn ball. Stop with these fucking shitty slants. Like, you have Kenny Pickett back there, not fucking Roethlisberger. Oh my God. Matt Canada needs to be fired tomorrow. I cannot take this man anymore. I'm just a fucking Jamoke in Canada, and I could do a better job as offensive coordinator. Like, ugh, it's disgusting. And that, you know what is another thing that needs to go? These fucking tight end screens are just horrible. Who the fuck are these coaches think they're fooling with these goddamn tight end screens? Like, David Njoku just went for a whole yard. Like, oh, I'm so sick of these shitty offensive coordinators and their terrible plays. I get it. I'm just some armchair idiot that doesn't fucking know. Like, run the damn ball with your best fucking player. Like, Najee Harris, just let him go stiff arm everybody out of the way. It's just run, seriously, pound the ball with Najee and then let Jaylen Warren go in and, like, have a couple explosive runs. People try to pump up Jaylen Warren like he's worth a shit. He's a complimentary back, and I like him for our team. But, like, you need to wear down the defense a little bit for Jaylen Warren to be effective, to be able to pop off those runs. Like, there's no scenario where the Steelers should be finishing any fucking game with less than 35 carries. 20 for Najee, like 20, 25 for Najee, and then 10, 15 for Jaylen Warren. Like, get the ball out of Kenny Pickett's hands. Oof. And the Browns kicker misses a 43-yard. This is going to be just one of those ugly-ass games where, like, we end up with a win, but I feel shitty about it because our team sucked and didn't actually deserve it. Browns miss. They basically just gifted us that turnover in the red zone by they didn't do anything with it, and they missed the 43-yard field goal. It's like I can't even be happy about it because I know now I got to watch Matt Canada work. Like, fuck's sakes. Ugh. Well, now I'm all upset. Let's just kill the rest of these hearts, and we can get back into hating life with the farts. So, where was I at? Christian Kirk. I was trying to say, before I got off on that whole tangent, apologies. Christian Kirk, you're going to want to target him specifically against man coverage teams because he's much better against man coverage per his own coach and obviously per the performance that was put in. And then, unfortunately, both Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley, like I had mentioned, barely missed out on touchdowns. So, they're still going to be very much in the rotation. Gabe Davis had a decent game. Deebo Samuel, Devontae Adams, Tank Dell, Jaden Reed, Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison. What did they have in common? They caught long touchdowns. Drake London, it was decent. Hollywood Brown, it was decent. Sell both. Sky Moore, Chiefs wide receiver, doesn't matter. It could be anybody in there. It could be Kadarius Toney next week. Could be Justin Ross next week. Could be Marquez Valdez-Scantling one week. The only one you can trust is Travis Kelce. And even the running backs at this point, like, you can't. Isaiah Pacheco had 12 for 70, and it's like, I don't know how much you can even trust the running backs. For tight end, Hawkinson had a great game. Hunter Henry had a great game for what Hunter Henry is and for what the tight ends are. Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce both caught a touchdown, so they finished as top tight ends. That's how easy it is. Darren Waller, Evan Ingram, Zach Ertz, Sam Laporta, and even Jake Ferguson, who, again, just 3 for 11, caught a touchdown. And then defense, who was the top defense this week? Dallas Cowboys? It was actually Tampa Bay Buccaneers, thanks to that stupid-ass pass that Justin Fields had where he just, like, gifted it right into the mouth of the defensive tackle who took it into the end zone for a touchdown. So it was actually Tampa Bay, Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo, Miami, and Indy all had good games. Farts. This is what we want to get into. The cathartic release of the guys that destroyed us.
Man down. Where you from?
Man, Jarrett, like he got it done for the most part. Like he got through because he had the 2 touchdowns to T. Higgins, but compared to like basically everybody else, and it was the same thing with like the rest of this list. Like Justin Fields, kind of, he had 15 points, which was fine. It was like all these guys are all like right around like the 15 point-ish range. Was like, Burrow and Fields and Mac Jones and even Tua had a really good real life game. Like he was against the Patriots and like, he was dropping dimes all over because they were playing like they came out immediately. Patriots did in a 3 safety high thing where they would just straight up were like, we're going to give you the middle of the field. You're not going deep on us. Tua just said, yeah, that's fine. Used Raheem Mostert and the short passing game and just cut them up and won the game pretty easily. So it was a good real life game. It was just bad for fantasy. Brock Purdy, same thing, kind of as Tua, just like it was, he just wasn't needed. It was like Christian McCaffrey and the defense, like they're going to have those kind of games. And then Trevor Lawrence was the one that was actually really disappointing. But I think it's just like a sign that Chiefs defense is underrated and really good and should be owned in more leagues because I think there's like a misnomer still from the early iteration of the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs where the defense like wasn't that good because they were getting on all these shootouts. And this year is like the complete opposite. Like I feel like the Chiefs probably should be like the number 1 defense picked up on waivers. Finally, a little screen pass to Warren. Getting something going on the offense. Oh, great. It was a 3rd down, so it was basically just giving up the 3rd. Well, he almost got it. Now it's 4th and 2, and they're just, no, screw it. Get the offense out. Let's punt. Defense back on the field. This game sucks. God, it's hard being a Steelers fan sometimes. I just wish this fucking offense would, like, join the 21st century. I'm sure there's lots of teams that can feel my pain. So, yeah. The running backs, speaking of, because right now we're already headed into a little bit of bust territory for the running backs in terms of Najee Harris. If this happens again in this game, I'm going to be upset. Josh Jacobs had 9 for -2 yards. It was gross. And he saved you basically with receiving work. So he got you there, but it wasn't fun. Justice Hill was a hot pickup, and then it ended up being Gus Edwards. So Justice Hill sucked. Javonte Williams, just that one is going to take time. I would not be playing him. I would just be ecstatic as a dynasty manager that he's back. I would be ecstatic as a redraft manager even that he's back and playing now. But he's not cracking my lineup until I see him like have the good game and be all the way back. Because, he's just going to tank your lineup, unfortunately, until then. Antonio Gibson, he's basically droppable. Isaiah Pacheco, you got to hold him, but it wasn't great. A.J. Dillon, gross. Travis Etienne had cramps and a bad game and a tough matchup with the Chiefs. But Tank Bigsby did absolutely nothing. So I think Etienne is still secure in his role. Roshan Johnson, Khalil Herbert, both had gross games. Honestly, until one of the Bears running backs really separates themselves, they're kind of just all blah, and I don't really want any part of them. Dameon Pierce is unfortunately I would be trying to move on from him. You can't even really play him right now because not only is the Houston defense still really bad and getting down, and they're always going to be playing from behind and negative game scripts and all the normal reasons, unfortunately, like his involvement in the passing game just like hasn't come into fruition in terms of the regular season, and the fact that their offensive line is already decimated. It's hard to foresee like a lot of success for Damian Pierce. Like, Rashad White had a good game. I would be immediately trying to move on from Rashad White. And the second Damian Pierce has a game like that, I would be trying to do the exact same thing. Alexander Madison going back to Thursday, that sucked. Tyler Algier, if you tried to flex him, it didn't really work out. 16 for 48. And he's not involved really in the passing game. It is really much like it's rushing work, and if he gets the touchdown or two, great. And if he doesn't, it's going to screw you for fantasy. And, touchdowns aren't sticky stats. They're not really something you can predict. However, though, the fact that he's getting 16 touches, like in deeper leagues, you could definitely be doing worse. So definitely, keep playing him depending on league format. But like if you're in a 10-man league and you're running out Tyler Algier getting cute, honestly, you should be looking elsewhere. Josh Kelly sucked. Rashad Penny also on Thursday. He didn't just ruin his own game. He ruined A.J. Brown's game with a freaking hold and had a big touchdown called back. Odell Beckham was injured. He says he's fine, but this feels like it's going to be a running theme. I don't really have a lot of shares of him. Jahan Dotson was one that is surprising and sucks. I feel like he was a fantasy darling of so many. That's when I really haven't seen a lot of people either. Like, it feels like people just are kind of all collectively upset about Jahan Dotson, where it's like we don't even want to trash the fantasy analysts that were hot and bothered about Jahan Dotson breakout season, especially with Terry McLaurin's toe injury being a little bit overblown. So that's definitely one where, it sucks. And I feel like everyone's just kind of collectively giving a pass on it. But yeah, if Jahan Dotson keeps having performances like this, I mean, he's basically droppable if he's splitting work with Curtis Samuel. Like that offense is running through Terry McLaurin for a pass game, and honestly, it's the run game. It's Brian Robinson 20, 25 times a game. Calvin Ridley, mentioned it already a little bit, but he went 2 for 32. Romeo Doubs went 2 for 30. Quentin Johnston was another, fantasy darling among the rookies. He's basically unplayable, and in redraft, he's droppable at this point. Like, unless one of Keenan Allen or Mike Williams were to get hurt, like he's basically playing behind Joshua Palmer. So if you have QJ on a roster in redraft, you can go ahead and drop him. It's fine. Ooh, Nick Chubb, big run. Ooh, yeah. I need that for some of my fantasy teams. All right, tight ends, Kyle Pitts. We already lamented Kyle Pitts. We've, poo-pooed him enough. Let's leave him alone. Dalton Kincaid. Remember, Dalton Kincaid was supposed to be the slot wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills? Yeah, it hasn't worked out that much. Rookie tight ends. Curse still lives. Dallas Goedert. This one I said he's just so mid. He's literally never had more than 60 receptions in his career. He's never had more than 900 touchdowns in his career. He's never had more than 6 touchdowns in his career in any season. Go look it up. Another nice run by Nick Chubb, just sneaking that in, by the way. Sneaking a little bit of goodness with this tight end grossness, because honestly, I feel like literally like I'm making people sick. And, Nick Chubb runs are like the Pepto-Bismol to kind of keep it down right now. A little bit of Tums for you. And then just a couple other guys. These are more just like deep fantasy darlings, but unfortunately, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett. The one that hurts me is Chigo Okonkwo, Dalton Schultz, Musgrave, Troutman, all these like deep tight end guys that everyone is trying to pump up. Turns out just tight ends suck for fantasy, and they kind of have always sucked, and it feels like they just always will suck. So they're just all, most tight ends, unfortunately, most weeks feels like are going to be in the fart section. It's like you either catch a touchdown or you don't. That's literally how it is, except for like 3 to 4 tight ends. And unfortunately, one of those tight ends, even like George Kittle, was in the fart section. He's not going to sneak past me. Only had 3, I think it was like 3 receptions for 30 yards or something like that. He really just hasn't like been that involved. But keep an eye, unfortunately, Brandon Ayuk, one of my champions, looks like he hurt his shoulder and then he came out and then he tried to go back in and then he came out again. So just the fact that he might be dinged up a little bit, if he were to miss time and it's just Debo and Kittle, then Kittle should see an uptick and should be a good play. So don't be trying to move on from George Kittle, even though he had 2 bad games, because tight ends are just that bad that, when he does pop, it'll be a tight end in 1 week. And on defense, if you tried to stream the Giants against the Cardinals, if you tried to play Chicago against the Bucks, they all sucked. And the other one too is Houston Texans. Not that anyone, really should have been playing them. I did honestly think that I could, because Anthony Richardson, in my mind, as a rookie quarterback, is like as good as he could be. He's also bound to make mistakes. And unfortunately, he got knocked out of the game. And so, like, he already had the 2 touchdowns, and then Gardner Minshew came in and just game managed them to a win. So the Texans defense, so much worse, too, than I thought they were going to be. Like, they were bad last year. I just kind of expected them to kind of regress a little bit to the mean. Not that I was expecting, like, a top 5 performance or anything, but, like, I figured they would fall more in between, like, 15 to 20. So, that one's kind of shitty that, like, D'Amico Ryans and Will Anderson, that they traded up for after Stroud at number 3 overall there, that it feels like they're really struggling on defense to start the season. So until that course corrects, make sure, again, targeting Houston Texans run defense. And then that's pretty much it, actually, for Hearts and Farts. Hell yeah. Kind of blew through that fast. Get into waivers. We'll get into our waivers here. Just some early waivers to keep an eye on. Obviously, with games running tonight, I'm not going in too much to the Panthers-Saints game because it's not looking that great. Honestly, both these games are looking like ass right now. Fucking Steelers, goddamn it, pissing me off. Stupid Matt Canada. I can't take this man anymore. All right. So, waivers. Let me get a little drinky poo here. And Russell Wilson, CJ Stroud, Baker Mayfield for quarterbacks. They're widely available. Obviously, if you're in 2 quarterback leagues, there's like nobody available. Maybe Josh Dobbs is out there. He's might actually be worth an ad if they're going to be playing from behind a lot. So, and again, deep super flex or 2 quarterback leagues, you can maybe grab Josh Dobbs. I'm not super big on it, to be honest. Matt Breida is going to be like forcibly added to rosters just to disappoint you, kind of like Josh Kelly, but it is what it is. You got to add the guy after Saquon goes out. But I would not be, bidding a lot. I would let my league mates definitely bid me up. Salvin Ahmed is someone I would be targeting because he's kind of presenting as like who we all hoped Devon Achane would be. So it's like, obviously he's not playable, but if Raheem Mostert does get hurt, which, has happened plenty of times, Salvin Ahmed is going to be a guy to maybe, sneakily get on waivers. And so you can just kind of, if you have room on the end of your bench, just kind of stash him so that you can be ahead of the crowd there. Rico Dowdle is kind of the same issue with Dallas Cowboys. He's getting like a lot of the backup work. So again, on deeper rosters, if you can add him. Jaleel McLaughlin is he's the one that actually scored for the Denver Broncos. They seem to really like him. And Craig Reynolds, David Montgomery got injured. And it seems like he might miss a couple weeks. And Craig Reynolds basically stepped right into his role. It wasn't Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe that changes with a week of practice. But honestly, the way that the Detroit Lions have been using Gibbs, I don't necessarily know that it does. So Craig Reynolds is definitely worth like a cursory ad in deeper leagues. For the wide receivers, Tutu Atwell, Josh Reynolds, Tank Dell, they all had really good games. I like Tutu until Cooper Kupp comes back. So people have been talking about like what is Cooper Kupp's effect on Puka Nacua, and I will defer to wide receiver genius Matt Harmon, who has identified that Puka Nacua more accurately fits the Robert Woods role. And so I definitely feel like he can coexist with Cooper Kupp. And I feel like Cooper Kupp will eat more into Tutu Atwell's role when he returns. So Tutu Atwell is worth adding and even playing in your flex until Kupp returns. Josh Reynolds, especially if Amon-Ra is now banged up with Jameson Williams not there, definitely worth adding. But hey, just be wary that I've had him on my dynasty squad for a hot minute, and he does not generally produce the way that he has the last 2 games. It has been a lot more spotty through his career, but he's carved a role with the Detroit Lions, and if they are just completely lacking at wide receiver, he's got a connection with Jared Goff. Jared Goff likes to look for him deep. He's worth an ad, but it would have to be like a little bit deeper rosters. I'm looking more for 12 to 14 man leagues. Allen Robinson and Calvin Austin, as gross it is as it is, and honestly, as I'm watching this game, I don't even know if it'd be worth it, but they're worth really deep cursory ads. And speaking of like very deep ads, like again, I'm in a 16-man dynasty league with like super deep rosters, and there's times where Josh Reynolds and Hunter Henry are like super viable starters for me. And so if you're in a league like that too, Khalif Raymond should be on your radar because he always pops up seemingly for a couple big plays whenever all the other wide receivers are banged up for Detroit. Tight end, Zach Ertz, as disgusting as it is, he's got a previous relationship with the coach there, Jonathan Gannon, so he might actually be a viable starter. That's how bad tight ends already are this year. So, just kind of monitor that. Jake Ferguson, it was basically because he caught the touchdown. His role is going to have to grow for him to have like a more meaningful role. Cade Otton is one that I would keep my eye on, especially in deep leagues, because he had 6 for 6 for 41. And then for defense this week, streaming defense, Kansas City will be at home against the Bears. I mentioned Kansas City defense is just a lot better than people think, and they need to be owned in a lot more leagues. I think this week will be the one where they are a hot waiver pickup. New England defense, probably not on waivers, but they are going to be on the road against the Jets. So they're definitely going to be a prime play. So if you have New England, let's say you're carrying a second defense. Let's say that you're like thinking, whatever. Honestly, like New England, you could even potentially ahead of that matchup, go look at another team that started 0-2 and see if they have like a really bad defense. And maybe if you feel like you can afford to let go of New England and get another defense or stream throughout the year, I would even maybe go poke around. It's early enough. Like those managers might be thinking because usually defenses aren't worth a damn. But if I'm a manager who's 0-2 and I'm looking for a difference maker on waivers, and I'm staring down the barrel of, especially in deeper leagues like Rico Dowdle and Allen Robinson, I might be willing to part with, an RB3, a wide receiver 4, whatever, for a defense. It depends. Like I said, it very much depends on the league format, what you think you can get. Or you could even package them and, maybe upgrade. Like, if you're the Justin Fields manager and you're really worried about Justin Fields, you also happen to have New England defense, that's something where I feel like you could pair Fields and Pat's defense as like just kind of like an extra piece. That's one of those like juicy extra pieces. I feel like if you're kind of in trade negotiations and it's kind of like on the fence, that can feel like a little bit of a difference maker. And the other one, Seahawks at home against Carolina. Carolina is kind of stinking it up right now against New Orleans. And so I expect the Seahawks, even though they got into like a huge scoring matchup with the Lions, the fantasy defense actually still did not bad. So I would stick with Seahawks defense here. What in the good Lord is going on in this game? My God. I have to take a quick little break here to narrate what the hell just happened, because this looked like straight out of like those football folly videos from like the early 90s. I think it was Gunnar Olszewski, who is disturbingly involved in our fucking game plan right now. Got smacked. It looked like he fumbled for a sec, but I can't tell. I think he fumbled because he got hurt on the play. The Browns picked it up. All right, here it is, the replay. Yeah, Gunnar Olszewski or whatever the fuck his name is, makes a catch, gets hit, fumble, ball hits the ground. And unfortunately, he is injured on the play, so that sucks. Like, you don't want to see players get injured, but it was a straight up shoulder to shoulder. This almost looks like he's like, this is just a straight up good hit, good tackle. That was shoulder to shoulder. He's acting like he's like really hurt. Okay, so yeah, then the Browns return man started bringing it back, and he fumbled, but he fumbled it out of bounds. So the Browns will retain possession probably, it looks like. God damn, this game is ugly. Fucking Steelers, god damn it. Run the fucking ball with Najee Harris. I'm so mad right now. All right, kickers are people too, and I'll get the hell out of here because I don't know how much more of this game I can handle. Brett Maher for the Rams, Nick Folk for the Titans. I mentioned it last week. They're both still on my list. If they're available in your league, they are hot pickups for kickers, and they are generally available. Brandon Aubrey, 28-year-old rookie for the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys look like they're going to be kicking plenty of field goals. And then Will Lutz. You want to get Lutz? Let's get Lutz. Denver Broncos, reunited with Sean Payton. Let's get the fuck out of here. Thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful Monday Mayhem. We'll try doing more of these live streams in the future. Catch you all on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes